Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital India Summit 2020, Enabling the New Normal, co-presented by Tata Consultancy Services. Driving the theme, Enabling the New Normal, the summit draws a roadmap to accelerate India's digital growth with actionable insights from eminent speakers. Today, Times Network's Mihir Bhatt is in conversation with Sachin Dev Duggal, the founder of Builder.ai, on the future of AI adoption in India, how it can impact different industries, and how his company makes it easy for anyone to convert their idea into a software with the help of AI, thus helping us become more steamroller and less road. Over to them.
Welcome to Digital India Summit 2020. This is the 6th edition, and we are talking about how technology has enabled the new normal. And we have with us a very special guest today, Sachin Dev Duggal, founder of Builder.ai, straight away from London. Sachin, thank you so much for joining us and welcome aboard to Digital India Summit 2020. As you know, this is the 6th edition, and we have been championing India's digital transformation in all our editions of Digital India Summit. This year is a special year because actually it is technology and it's the digital ecosystem globally which has sort of kept the world moving during this whole pandemic and the kind of crisis that we were going through, and some of the parts are still going through. My first question is about that uh, as somebody who's so deeply involved in the digital ecosystem and technology, did you expect something like this, or did you expect that technology will actually literally handhold the world and see us through this pandemic?
So firstly, thank you so much for having me today. It's always a pleasure, I think your question is a really interesting one. We think about when we started Builder, we believed that businesses were going to become software businesses, whether they were directly software companies because they're building software or because they're becoming software powered. If we think about today, material waste management in a car manufacturing plant, or the bakery in Mumbai that wants to build its local neighborhood. A lot of this was things that we believed would eventually become software driven or omni-channel or digital commerce. And we've been hearing about that for a while. I think what was really unique with COVID is that it sort of took away the crutches that many of us were relying on, the physical brick and mortar, the physical way of doing business, the traditional processes that we were following. And as hard as COVID has been, and for many small businesses, and small businesses are the lifeline of most economies, it's been a really to the year. But I think there is a silver lining in it, which is it's given entrepreneurs businesses the opportunity to step back and say, okay, well, the old way or the normal way or the traditional way is no longer a way that's going to work, at least for the next 6 to 9 months.
That's true. In fact, in India also, right from Prime Minister Modi to the many leaders and even organizations, they have tried to convert this crisis into an opportunity. And one of the biggest clarion call that Prime Minister Modi himself gave was to make India self-reliant. And this was maybe our moment of truth when we realized that we are so interconnected and so much dependent on, other markets and the supply chains and all. Now, a platform like Builder.ai becomes very critical because all those small entrepreneurs who are now trying to migrate to the digital world, there's a major gap when it comes to software development or app building and all of that. So companies like yours are going to play a very crucial role. How do you see that scenario evolving going forward? Because I think this has triggered a sort of revolution which is here to stay. COVID might go away, but this revolution is going to sustain.
Yeah, look, I think that's another great question. And maybe there's sort of multiple ways of answering it. Let me start with a really personal. I have 2 little dinosaurs. One is 4, okay. One is 1. I don't want my dinosaurs growing up in a world where they need to be the girl that can code or the boy that can code to be able to solve problems, to build ideas, to build businesses. And so it is a de facto conclusion that the amount of technical expertise that we today need to build software needs to be removed. It needs to be as easy as ordering Domino's pizza, or it needs to be as easy as sitting in a car and in the future being driven by the car, or sitting in a plane and not being the pilot. So I think that's, to me, macro trend that we're starting to see, been around for a couple of years, but it's obviously with COVID and everything else is accelerating. I think the second thing is to see how the market has changed. If you think about the evolution of just say retail, We went from,
Yeah.
very sort of segmented retail, private retail chains, the malls came in, then you started having e-commerce providers like Flipkart and Amazon that came into India. And for small businesses, and on the flip side, on things where you've got Squiggy or Uber Eats in certain parts of the world, and they're aggregating, right? So you've had these aggregators come in, and that was great for small businesses to a certain extent because it was augmented traffic, it was augmented revenue, augmented customers. But I think businesses are now realizing that their primary channel is going to be digital.
Oh, that's interesting. Also, for a country like India, it's quite critical because we have to create enough businesses in India to sustain the sheer size of workforce that we end up adding annually to our anyways large population. And so somewhere it is very critical that we build entrepreneurship right from the very base level. And I think that is where a major gap can be filled by the whole technology ecosystem or the digital ecosystem, and maybe companies like Builder.ai. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great point, right? Up till now, at least in India, there was always a sense that there was the tech industry and the tech economy. There was a little bit of
Yeah,
cross, and then there was traditional economy, right? And I
correct.
think what you're now starting to see is it's all just collapsed together. And so now that
Right,
it's all collapsed together, you have folks that understand software, don't understand software. Folks that understand technology, don't understand technology. But here's the thing: 90% of small businesses make up 90% of a country's economic backbone. They're also the largest employer on an aggregate basis. And so it is our responsibility, folks that are in technology, to now start demystifying what used to be another industry for most people, and really allowing them a bridge to coexist, to grow, because tech will never employ the same number of people that every single Kirana store in India does, that every single in India does, that every single grocery store in India does. And so there is now an understood requirement to get those folks to be digital first or software powered, because ultimately that's what's going to save jobs in India, not just MNCs or large tech companies coming in. It's a small dent they will.
right. So, and that's a valid point. Now, I think somewhere the government's role also is critical in building an ecosystem which is conducive to the change that's happening any which ways. So, do you think as a country we are doing enough? As a government, we are doing enough? Are there enough support mechanisms in place to probably power something like this more rapidly?
So look, I think enough is a really difficult question. The question is, could we do
Hmm.
more? Um, and I
Yeah.
think could we
Okay,
do
let's put
more
it that
also
way.
allows us to build upon, right? It's also building on whatever traction is going on right now. I would say there's sort of two or three spectrums to this. We've seen where entrepreneurs can apply for a grant and for whatever idea they're trying to build. Then there is a lot of sort of tech advisory or tech guidance. And so I think we've made the first step to say it's very important to be technology enabled, important to have self-service within India. Now I think we need to move to the next step, which is about programs which are heavily reliant on funding, but also on expertise.
If we talk specifically about your business, Sachin, in what is your key takeaway in last 6 to 8 months, especially in a market like India? What kind of demand traction you have observed? Are there any specific industries where you see a great demand, and there are specific industries where there is a lag or something like that? I mean, what's your key learning in last 6 to 8 months in a market like India?
Overall, we see a huge amount of movement at the top of the funnel. So lots of people showing interest.
Okay.
So I think that it's an exponential change from the prior. So you had sort
Hmm.
of February was just a bizarre month because everything stopped as people tried to figure out what was going on. March, you had folks still sort of figuring it out. April, there was a little bit of a push, and then really from May there was no looking back. So not only are you seeing a lot of
Hmm.
interest, but what you're noticing is the quality of conversation is very much about, I need to get this done, as opposed to, what if I did this, or maybe, and I think a couple of the ways that translates down is if you've got the right price point, which I think we have for India, then there's very little negotiation. Customers are moving from first conversation is within 2 to 3 days. And they're very intent on getting it out as fast as possible. Something, again, which our platform obviously helps with a lot. I think the second thing is when you think about it, we obviously see a lot of movement in retail. And when I talk about retail, it's not only selling of goods, it's selling of services. More and more customers are interested in implementing contact tracing. More and more customers are interested in implementing sort of a smart way of booking to manage traffic inside their physical locations, whether it's spas or hair salons or gyms. We see a huge interest from restaurants. If you think about just that food and beverage industry, it's lost 30% of its revenue because of lockdowns. And so they need to do 30% more table turns remaining part of the year, assuming no more lockdowns. To do 30% more turns, you can't just do it better, because actually 30% more table turns is a huge amount for a restaurant. And so we've seen restaurants come up with ideas, order, can I let my guests order from home? And the food goes on the pan 5 minutes away. So that time you spend looking at the menu is completely vanished. And so I'm seeing a lot of this MSME, small business become very creative around what they're trying to do. The second set of folks are sort of the medium businesses. So I would say upper end of small, medium sector, 200 people, 400 people, 100 people and above. Starting to look at their businesses and say, okay, what can I do from a process perspective that removes the human-to-human conversations that were needed before, or processes that were heavily human reliant, because people are working from home, you don't know when offices are going to. But I think the other one, which has been fascinating, is what do that's new? How can I now launch a new service to my customer? How can I go up the value chain? How can I have engagement with the customer? And these were things that, engagement as mid-market and the lower market and sort of the SMB market was something that you did as loyalty, but you never did it programmatically. You never really thought about it like a software company thinks about engagement. Now you're starting to see restaurant owners and spa owners and gym owners actually start thinking about engagement as a software entrepreneur would.
One is, the software or the app development for a B2C transaction or probably external facing interface. The second is basically to improve the efficiency internally, and maybe it could be a large corporate who's trying to build efficiency in different pockets or different clusters, or it could be a small corporate or an SME, like you mentioned, who's basically trying to streamline their internal processes. What is the kind of growth potential for the second level of business or the second type of business that we just discussed, which is mainly focusing internally on companies' efficiency? Is that a huge space in terms of opportunity, or will it be still a front-ending business like, let's say, retail and spas and hospitality, like you mentioned?
Yeah, so look, I think globally, corporate or enterprise outsourcing, mid-market and above, is about a dollar market space. And at least 60% of it is internal facing. So you helped a beverage business build a new product distribution system in their internal processes. We've helped someone build an order management system. We're starting to see more and more companies. We helped a large Indian retail chain ship employees to different retail locations using like an internal Uber service. These are all internal tools and processes, material waste management in a factory. Ultimately, what it comes down to is there were a bunch of processes that were there that were paper driven. Unfortunately, anything with paper now is just harder with the way the world is. I think there were a bunch of processes before that didn't need the degree of efficiency or over communication that they need now. The minute you start having to communicate more, make things more efficient, it's a natural software answer, especially on processes that are highly repetitive or that have high volume. And so as we think about enterprise customers, they are realizing anything that is high value, highly repetitive, or requires lots of communication is sort of right to be optimized by building software.
Brings me back to my question on India, because it's a unique market. Can a platform like yours actually allow companies to probably leapfrog and not necessarily go through that same longer, painful process of evolution and maybe put them ahead in the race or at least at par with others?
If I go back to why we started the company, we took a view
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago that people were going to fight. They had a fear of being irrelevant. In today's world, fear of irrelevance is my store is not around. I work in a department, I can't do my work. My boss is going to think I'm inefficient. I'm thinking about employment coming out of college. Do I go do my own thing? Do I go work for someone, but there's no work, or the whole way work is working has changed? And so it is the fear of irrelevance us to think about things to do to be relevant, whether it is to look better, to make more money, to be busy, to find a job. And overwhelmingly, that answer is software. The problem was most people had a fear of failure. So if you think about, you said those that are still early in their development, I call them the to be inspired, right? Deep down, there's a motivation to not be irrelevant. They're just finding the inspiration on how they get out of that fear or how they overcome that fear. Right, the way they really understand, but their fear of failure is still there. Everybody has a fear of failure, irrespective of whether they have an idea, don't have an idea, know the problem they're solving, don't know the problem they're solving. And what our platform allows people to do is the bigger is because they don't understand. They don't really know. They're not a software expert. They're not a techie. And we're removing the need for them to become a techie. They can build, easily build affordable software that's to their business or their idea, and effectively giving everyone the same ground level. So that now when the idea is great, because you have a problem that you're solving, because you have customers that like your product or service, not because your app worked or didn't work, not because some small developer, your cousin's friend, your nephew that went to an engineering school tried to build you an app in their part-time work and it really didn't fell over or it charged the person the wrong amount. The thing is, not only are you trying to inspire people that it's possible, but you're trying to deliver them the same experience as what they thought was their primary experience. How many retail outlets do we go to where people don't care about what it looks like? Of course they care about what it looks like. People care that their restaurant is clean. People care that the boarding on their salon looks great. People care that when people come to the gym, they feel like they want to come back. And we need to be able to translate those same qualities and values that they aspire for in their physical into a digital first experience. And the only way you do that is to really convert the whole process of building software into a manufacturing process. And that's really what we've done. You're removing the need for people to be an expert.
So if you have to look into the crystal ball and probably look into the future, maybe 5 years from now, what is the kind of evolution that you're looking at in the entire ecosystem? And I'm not talking about the large scale, huge changes that will be probably brought in by the large players, especially in India, in the digital ecosystem. But these small steps that various companies are taking, probably it will evolve the country as a society to some next level, some different level altogether, in entrepreneurship, in employment, in ideation, in execution, in efficiency, inventory management, everything. So 5 years from now, how you see the scenario changing from where we are right now? Are we actually going to leapfrog from industry 2.0 straight away into industry 4.0? Because we are not really there in 3.0 right now.
Yeah, so I actually think there's a lot of people at 1. There are some people at 1.0. There are very few people at 2.0. And I think what you're going to see over the next 5 years is when a bunch of macro things happen, you will see everyone leapfrog to 4.0 because you just won't be able to exist with 0.1 or with 1 or with 2. And so what do those things look like? Right? I think the first thing is the merging of the digital industry and the traditional industry, which is happening now already, is going to be sealed at that point. You are now in industry. There is no flavor if it's digital or traditional. I think you're going to see everything is omni-channel. Tech will be omni-channel, or traditional business will be omni-channel. I think the third thing you're going to see is collaboration. Today there's still a lot. There are a bunch of companies in India that believe that they can own all of India's digital footprint, or they can own all of e-commerce, or they can own all of retail, or they can own all of software development. And I think what you're going to start seeing is more collaborative, which is everyone's going to own a part of the ecosystem because nobody can own the economy, right? When the traditional world and the digital world was separate, you could own parts of the digital world. The whole marketing 1,000x bigger. It's impossible to own it. And I think when we move away from that world of we need to own it to how do we create impact in it, then you start creating collaboration, where you also allow young companies, young entrepreneurs, kids coming out of business school in India, kids coming out of economics degrees, to start building software companies, to start building companies that use software to solve specific parts of what that now new ecosystem looks like.
Right. So just to extend this point, are you somewhere saying, because India has just sort of, warmed up to this whole idea of aggregation and small businesses contributing to maybe one large umbrella player who's probably helping them sell their produce everywhere, connect them from local to global supply chains and all of that. Are you somewhere saying that that thing has already changed or is changing, and we are once again looking at a maybe more micro level but direct channels operating from, to put it simply, farm to fork, something like that?
Yeah, look, I think the way I look at it is this: every industry goes through an evolution. Right? Now the economy evolution. So you started off with everyone having their store, then you started having the malls, then you started having the e-commerce providers, then you started having the aggregators, and that was all great, whilst it was augmenting small business revenue, augmenting existing customer flow, because you had your retail outlet, you had your restaurant, you had whatever. The minute people are switching from digital being an augmented route to being a primary route or an omni-channel, these aggregators will still exist, but actually you're going to start seeing the grassroots wanting to have control of their digital destiny. Imagine this, right? You're a restaurant. You don't want to become a dark kitchen. You're Moti Mahal in Delhi. You don't suddenly want to be called the Moti Mahal kitchen, right? And you don't want to be sending your traffic to go now seeing food from Narula's or food from other places. It sort of doesn't make any sense because you're driving your traffic somewhere else. It was fine when it wasn't traffic. Now what you're seeing is businesses are bringing their customers online, and they don't want to send their customers to an aggregator.
So basically what we are saying is the future is actually going to empower probably small businesses also equally, and not necessarily only the large scale players or the so-called giants
Absolutely.
of the industries.
Yeah.
Great. Sachin, it was a pleasure having you on this conversation, and I think you have given us a lot of insights. I wish you all the best and look forward to having conversation again. Thank you, Sachin. Thanks.
That brings us to the close of this interesting discussion here at Times Network Digital India Summit 2020, Enabling the New Normal, co-presented by Tata Consultancy Services. Thank you so much for watching.